been late. That's why I'm running a little bit, because I want to hear the presentation and also your questions afterwards. I will now give the floor to Mr. Delgado Rosa. Mr. Delgado, now the floor is yours. Please, for 10 minutes for the first presentation.
Thank you very much. First, for the invitation, this chance to exchange some ideas on this important topic. And let me go directly to say that wolves, together with bears and lynx, the large carnivores we have in Europe, are part of our heritage, our natural heritage, our patrimony. So indeed, they do fulfill an important role in our ecosystems, and that's why they are protected. What we have seen recently is, and still ongoing, is a recovery of wolf populations across several EU countries, from which they have been almost extirpated, in some cases totally. And this can be seen and should be seen as an important success of European nature conservation. In 2019, the member states have reported the wolf to be in favorable conservation status in 18 out of 39 national parks of biogeographical regions where the species is present. Now, this is, of course, made possible by our nature legislation and its implementation, as well as other factors. There are other sociodynamic factors, socioeconomic factors in our landscapes that allow other species also to expand. For instance, the wild boar, there's more prey, but the times when the wolves were persecuted and killed wherever they would be spotted are over. The wolves are protected. At the same time, we are very much aware that this is a very polarizing issue. We receive a lot of parliamentary questions, citizens' complaints and petitions, both in favor and against the protection of the species, and we take all these concerns and views very seriously, noticeably the concerns of those that feel the impacts, the fears, the concerns, or the damage from the return of the wolf, including, of course, livestock breeders. In any case, as regards the Commission position on the wolf, we remain very much convinced that the Habitats Directive, together with the EU Biodiversity Strategy to 2030, they do provide a solid legal and policy framework for action on the topic. And the framework is fit for purpose. In practice, member states are responsible for implementation, and they do have access to the necessary measures to ensure the conservation of the wolf, while also protecting against the challenges that this coexistence requires, notably addressing the problems with livestock breeders. In the Commission, we have provided often, including recently, clarifications, guidance, recommendations, and I would refer to the new guidance on species protection that was adopted in October 2021, which has specific information and advice on the wolf. And I would recall the joint letter on wolf addressed on the 3rd November to all member states by the commissioners for agriculture and for environment, and which we have made public in the webpage of the European Platform on Large Carnivores. So the clues that this letter and this guidance refers to, for example, the European Agricultural Fund for Rural Development under the Common Agricultural Policy may be used to help extensive livestock raising to cope with the presence of large carnivores and the predation risks. And member states can choose to design livestock protection and measures and include them in their rural development programs. And actually several regions actually do so. Now, what measures? Well, the measures can cover different aspects. They can cover investments to set up livestock protection measures. They can cover the labor costs for the additional work to implement and maintain the prevention systems, as well as necessary training, advice, technical assistance services, so as to direct the financial support to shepherds. And now, I say all this very much aware this is not simple and there's not a one-size-fits-all solution everywhere. The livestock protection measures, they do work provided they are designed, tailored, and implemented in accordance with the local environmental characteristics and with the type of husbandry that a certain region has. And adding to this, we do need adequate monitoring to see if the results are working, to adjust the measures and to improve their effectiveness. But I'll tell you one measure that is crucial, which is the involvement of all relevant actors, including, of course, the concerned livestock breeders, but also the experts in protection measures, the wolf specialists, the relevant agriculture and environmental authorities, the nature protection organizations, and so forth. Dialogue does not solve everything, but it helps a lot on bringing a common understanding that is very much needed. Adding to this, and now on the controversial issue of wolf culling, let me recall that EU legislation does not prohibit the killing of individual wolf specimens. Even in the regions where it is strictly protected, that is not banned as an alternative, but it is a last resort. It's an option that is allowed if certain conditions are fulfilled, such as protecting another public interest where no alternative could be devised and where there is no negative impact on the wolf population. So, but it is not the culling. We cannot go to a full alternative of culling wolves every time we want because it is protected, but problematic cases and protection needs can involve wolf culling. From our side, and finally, within the Commission, we'll continue to support the member states and the stakeholders so as to design and find suitable solutions within the existing legal framework, which we again find very fit for purpose to ensure the coexistence and mitigate the related conflicts. We channel the support in different streams, one of which is European and regional stakeholders dialogue platforms, also very much thanks to the support of the European Parliament. We have the updated Commission guidance on species protection under the Habitats Directive that I have referred to. We maintain bilateral exchanges with the member states, and we maintain and foster the support for coexistence in the financial framework for 2021-2027, which includes LIFE projects, CAP strategic plans, EU state aid rules, and so forth. So we think this approach of coexistence is fully in line with the requests expressed by the European Parliament, including in its report on the EU Biodiversity Strategy for 2030, which was adopted in the 8th of June 2021, where the Parliament explicitly calls on the Commission and the Member States to take adequate measures to address socioeconomic conflicts linked to the topic, such as preventive and compensation measures ensuring the protection. So my very final comments, I think we need a lot of tolerance and understanding for the concerns, views, pressures, and emotions that wolves bring a bit everywhere. Coexistence requires persistence until having back a system where livestock is duly protected, and then the wolves fulfill their ecological role by preying on wild ungulates and helping ensure that we have healthy ecosystems and a vibrant EU nature. Back to you, Mrs. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much to you, Mr. Delgado. So you are from the Commission Director of Biodiversity in DG ENV. And yeah, it was very interesting to have this depth overview of how far legislation goes really to respect the wolf. So I give now the floor to Mr. Landry, whose presentation will now focus on the interaction really between livestock guarding dogs and wolves in the southern French Alps. So looking forward to hear how that works.
Thank you. Everyone hear me?
Yes, very good.
Oh, good. So I will try to share my screen. And I should find this. Partager. Okay, do you see something? It is working?
Yes, I see.
Okay, fantastic. So thanks for the invitation. I'm a biologist living in Switzerland and in France. I'm working on wolf since 25 years old, and I'm very interested in the relationship between wolf and humans, and mostly with pastoral activities. And we led a project a few years ago, and is what I would like to present today. So what's going on here? I have a problem to how I can do this. Maybe I should take this. Okay, this is working now. So this will be my presentation. I will make a short introduction, just present a few way how we worked, present a few main findings. And before to talk about interaction between wolves and dogs, we should know what is a wolf and how it is working in the pastoral system. And then I will maybe bring a few ideas to bring a new way or a new look at herd protection. And then I will give a very short conclusion. Okay. So, you know, maybe that in France, it's one of the countries where we have the highest number of wolf attacks on livestock, mainly on sheep and goats. And when we started this project, we were asking why is so difficult in France to protect the flock? So are the herd protection measures not working, or do we have other factors? And the fact, when you go on the field and you try to work on the field, what you see is all the complaints, because in the morning when we are shepherd, you just see the tip of the iceberg, what's going on in the morning when you have lost a sheep or a goat, but you don't know what is in the bottom of the iceberg. And what we want to do in this project, say, maybe we should study the dark side of all this relationship, interaction between wolves and flocks. And it was the first time, and we were very astonished about this, it was the first time that a team of scientists went in the night to try to film during the night the interaction of wolf herds and protection measures, mainly livestock guarding dogs. So the question is how wolves do attack flock, how wolves interact with dogs, and how dogs or livestock guarding dogs will defend the flock, you know. And we had all these questions. So we built this project, and the name is Canovis. And now I will just show you how we worked, and in which places we worked. So we worked in the southern part of the Alps, in the Mercantour Massif, and in the Cangever Plateau. It's two different locations. It's not exactly the same landscape, but we had a lot of sheep there, but we have also the most damages on flocks there since 10 years or 15 years. So it was a very good location to start our study and to try to understand what was going on. And our working method is based on mechanical objectivity. This is very important. So we bring videos, we bring materials to show. It's not to say we want to be for the wolf or against the wolf. It is to stay very objectivity. And what we used as a material is night vision. So we have some military cameras which allowed to film during the night. And this is something great because you can see for the first time what's going on. So you can film a wolf attacking a flock and how dogs are reacting. And we, of course, worked also with GPS and camera. I will show you that. And look what kind of data we can collect. So here we have a flock penned in an electric fence. You have two wolves. So one is a male and the other one is a female. And you will see something very interesting. Wolf, I will just let you discover the video and I will explain. So here you see the wolf jumping over the fence, electric fence, running after the sheep, attempt an attack, and then the dog is chasing off the wolf. And this video is very interesting because you have a lot of information. You already see that the two wolves are not equal. So you have two different personality. One is more bold, the other one is shy, and you see how the dogs could work and how the sheep could be frightened by the wolf and so on. So it is very, very informative to be able to have such video. And of course, we had to get some other data like a GPS. We put some GPS on dogs, and when dogs are running after the wolf, we can film, and in the same time we have the GPS data, and we were able to record some dogs running after the wolf at more than 45 kilometers per hour. Just imagine during the night in the mountains, some dogs are running at more than 45 kilometers. It's a show how brave they are and how physics they are. And we are also using automatic cameras because this gives also many information. Like here you see You have see the father, sub-adult, you can see pups, and you can see the relation also between you see you have a sub-adult and here is a breeding pair. So you can collect a lot of information, and when you put all this information, thermal camera, GPS, and automatic camera, you can get a lot of information. And one point is very, very important, that sheep farmers and shepherds as project partners. We are not biologists who go and say to these people, you have to behave in this way, you have to do this. It's just an exchange. I bring my point of view of a scientist, and they bring the point of view of a shepherd. And for us, it was very important because we were accepted. Just imagine during night, you have your night camera, and we are behind all the night, behind the thermal camera, and you are filming, you are following the sheep. Usually we use a bedding place, so it's, and sometimes you have the hut, so you can just imagine that we can also observe the shepherd live. And many times we have the shepherd with us because they want also to see what's going on during the night. And if you want to have more information about our methodology and even the results, we have some publication, and we have published a report. Unfortunately, it is in French, but you have many information. And we were supported by the Fondation, also by the French government to publish this information. So the main findings, just imagine we spend more than 3,000 hours during night to try to observe what's going on. And we were able to record the 163 approaches of wolf to livestock. It's quite an amazing amount of data. We were able to record 65 wolf attacks and 175 interaction between LGDs and wolves. And this is quite a lot of things because it was the first time it was done. And this shows you how lucky we were, because when we start this project, everyone say, oh, it's impossible to film a wolf during night. And you can see we were very, very lucky, and we are very proud about our result. So I will now present a few data about wolves in the pastoral system. What for me it's very important to understand, and what was new even for me as a biologist. The wolf and sheep are living on the same territory. That in Europe, at least in our study areas, wolves are living exactly at the same place as sheep. It's not like in North America where you can have livestock and yes, is a part wolf. Here, they are living always together. So they are sharing the same places. That is very important. And wolf will be there not only for hunting sheep, but only to live and to be there. And this is, unfortunately, I didn't translate it, but we wanted to know, do wolves are always interested to the pastoral system? That means, do they always attack sheep where they are on the pastoral system, on an Alpine pasture, for example, or do they live also there? And you can see that 54% of the action is in interest, but you have 46% who they just pass by the flocks, they just sleep maybe on the Alpine pasture, or they play, or they will howl, and they will just live there, you know. And that was for us very, very surprising, because before I thought that the wolf will go and kill sheep, but it's not always the truth. Sometimes the wolves are just there and just passing by. And of course, you have some wolf pressure on flocks, on depending on the herd. And in some places, you can have an approach every 2 nights, an attack attempt every 5 nights. So just show you that your protective measures should be good, and the dog should work very well to avoid attacks. And what is very interesting also in this figure, we record 163 approaches, which 143 which was heard, and 20 on the isolated livestock. It could be a sheep alone or just a small group of sheep. And what you can see, if in a herd, the successful rate of wolf when they're approaching and go to kill a sheep is 12%, but it's much higher when they are on isolated livestock. And you can see here, for all attacks, we have less victims in a herd to compare to isolated livestock, less victim. And why? Because here you have dogs. And this, we were able to show this. When we have dogs, when they are approaching flocks or livestock alone. When you have dogs, you have only 10% attack with victims. And this, I think, is the first time. This figure is very important because we were able to show that when you have dogs working and they are with the flock, they are doing a good job. That show also you will never be able to have a zero predation, even we have dogs. Of course, dogs are dogs, wolves are wolves, and they are all together. And that shows you for the first time that I think dogs are doing a very good job. Of course, wolves are also wolves, and sometimes we also recorded some attacks on sheep, and the wolves were eaten sheep alive. And this is also the truth, a part of objectivity, you know, and that was something very, very, very hard for sheep owners and for shepherds. When wolves are attacking flocks or moving together, usually they are one or two. In the site of Conjures, we had a little more wolves, but this shows you when wolves are roaming or going to attack flock of sheep, for example, goats, usually there are one or two. It's not all the pack, you know. And this part very surprising for us because before I thought that many wolves will go and attack the flock, but maybe to kill a sheep is quite easy, so they don't need to be all the pack. But when there are several, we were able to record any cooperation strategy like we can read in books. And for example, this image is very interesting because here we have a flock of sheep, have a wolf making an attack. Here we have a wolf is waiting, just observing, and this one is escaping. When the sheep start to move, this wolf escaped. And this is very strange, you know, because I would believe that all the wolf will run after, try to kill sheep, and it's not always like this. So this shows you how complex this wolf when they're attacking or all these interactions. And what also is very interesting is the activity pattern of the wolf is not equal during all the nights. So we were able to show that the pattern was, behavior pattern was more important, the first part of it. This is very important when you want to protect your flock. You know that till midnight you have to be very careful, and then in the morning you have to be less careful. That don't mean they will never attack, but the frequency is lower. And something we heard by shepherds and sheep owners in France is that in autumn or maybe in August or even in September, they see a wolf learning, teaching pups to kill sheep. And in our study, we never seen any pup in the nearby, in the close by herds, you know, never. So we were a little surprised by this, but cubs are too small and they are not able to hunt sheep in August, September, or even October. They are very babies, and even they are quite tall, but in their head they are babies. So now I would like to introduce you to some result about our study on interaction between livestock guardian dogs and wolves. And again, wolves and dogs are sharing the same territory. They are on the same areas. And here you can see we record all the presence of wolf in the presence of dogs. And sometimes this bring to interaction when they are close enough, and sometimes the wolf just pass by, the dog are there, but the dog didn't notice the wolf. So, but they are living also in the same territory, and we don't know how they communicate with smell, or, you know, whether they are marking with cats or make a urination or such things. And here, this is also very, very interesting, because if you take this part of this figure here, you can see the interaction could be close to the flock, of course, but nearly more than half of the interaction could be till 300 meters, and even some interaction very, very far away from the flock. So that shows you that the interaction is not only on the vicinity of the flock, but could be also at a distance. That is very important. Here, we also could filmed many interaction and physical fights between wolf and dogs. And the strongest physical fights were around carcasses. That means when a wolf kills a carcass, dogs come and will also feed on the sheep carcasses or roe deer carcasses. And you have a lot of interaction in this. And the last result here I would like to show you, a wolf, when it's being on the Alpine pasture, like I told you, it can be interested in the pastoral system, or interested in the herd, for example, or not interested. And we notice this even when the wolf is not interested, we have interaction with dogs. That means dogs, if they see wolves, they would just chase them off, not only because they're close to the flock, but because they are passing by the territory, with the dog territory. But when the wolf is interested on pastoral system, you have a higher increase or frequency of interaction between the dogs and wolf, you can see, but not always you can see this. And when you have interaction, usually we had 1 or 2 wolves involved. In some cases, you can have till 7 wolves or more, but you don't have a pack of wolves fighting a pack of dogs. We were able to record such behaviors, but usually it's only 1 or 2 wolves, and these were also very surprising. Sometimes you have a wolf and just coming and try to attack the flock, and you have 20 dogs there and don't know why he tried to attack. And LGDs present mainly agonistic behavior, and that is very, very reassuring. That means when a dog see a wolf, he will try to chase off by chasing off, a pursuit, or interposition, or even fight. And sometimes fight go to the death of the wolf or a dog. And also searching for the wolf. You have some vocalization, but vocalization do not really protect the flock, because wolves don't care about this. And we have also some non-belligerent behavior. Sometimes the wolf can play with the dog, but it's quite rare, but this still exists. Now I would like to show you some interaction through a video. So you will see many interaction both in Mercantour and Canjouer. So this is the night time. Here you have the dogs, Great Pyrenees, and you will see a wolf very close by. Here you see a wolf, it's very close to us when we're filming. And you will see now first wolf attack on the flock. We are in the Canjuers plateau. This is a wolf. We have 2,000 here, no electric fence, no electricity, no shepherds, and we have 8 dogs sleeping there. We are in the night, you see 1 a.m. And the wolf attempt an attack, and then you have the bells of the sheep make a special noise, and this will alert dogs. And these 2 dogs were well placed, so quite easy for them to chase off the wolf. But just remind this, we're in the night, and so the dog cannot even see the wolf, so they try to find the wolf by the smell, I think. That show you how they are working. Just imagine you have no dog there, the wolf will make a lot of damages. And here we have 2 dogs running after 2 wolves. And this view is just to show you how difficult is the landscape for dogs to work, because here we have a lot of trees. We are in what we call in France a melaisin. And these dogs are doing well, You can understand sometimes the dog could be better than the wolf. And here we have something very interesting. You have 2 wolves here and 2 dogs, and just see this wolf is running after the wolf and is nearly able to catch it. And this wolf was running at more than 45 kilometers per hour in this type of landscape. This is just incredible for me. They show you that how this dog work. And sometimes a dog against 4 wolves. I always say this is a Swiss dog because it's a very good dog, but we are neutral also in Switzerland, so we escape also. So this was the first time we had interaction between dogs and wolves, and at the time I was thinking that the dog is dead, and if you see the wolf, the pursuit there is not very serious. So you just see one exchange. Just to understand what's going on here, the wolf has it killed a lamb, and the dog tried to chase off, and the one dog was alone against the 4 wolves. So now he tried to escape, and everything is fine for him. And it was fine because the wolf gave up and went to chase some chamois and left the sheep carcass to the dogs. And sometimes you have also very strange interactions, strange behaviors. Here you have a wolf. He was chased off by a dog, and he stayed aside the trail, and the dog passed by, didn't notice the wolf, and the wolf is waiting there. And for us, it was something very strange. That shows you that maybe the wolf are not always afraid by dogs. And sometimes you can have, like here, some physical interactions, not very serious here, but that shows you also in what kind of landscapes the dogs and the wolf are evolving, and how hard it is for also dogs to work on this typical landscape. You know, the wolf is like the best predator you can have. So you need the best dogs also to face this wolf. So all the information I have presented to you brought us a new way to see this wolf and the herd and all this protection. So I will try for the end of my talk to present you a few ideas how we could keep going on, how we could improve herd protection throughout Europe and especially in France. I think we have to break the deadlock, because till now. We have considered wolf as an invariant factor. That means all wolves are the same, all dogs are the same, and we put some protection. But you have to take it into account the wolf, because the wolf you have seen they have personality, they have different temperaments, they have different ages, and they have different social status and so on. So I will not afraid you with this diagram here, but it's just to show you, if you take a wolf, you can have the individual variabilities, the social organization, and the relationship in the pastoral system, and you can bring new variables like intelligence or the sex, age, resource holding potential, all this. You can have some wolves who are shy or bold, you can have cubs, Bardot, and so on. And you have many type of wolves. They can be adult breeder, or it could be cubs, or they could be floaters, and so on. So the wolf is not equal to another wolf, and even they have evolution modes. Means sometimes they have some behavior, some nights they arrive on the Alpine pasture and they are on the predator mode. You can see greens, that mean when they are on the predator mode, that means they will go and kill wildlife, and they are not a danger for the flock. But of course, if they are the predator mode, that means they come and to kill sheep. And we cannot translate this in a scientific way, but it's a very strong feeling when we are observing wolves. And when wolves are resting, or they are in displacement, they are not a danger. When they are scavenging, for example, was prospecting, maybe it could pass and became the predator. But that should show you, even a wolf is not equal to another wolf. During one day, the wolf will not behave the same another day. You know, it's very complex. And I show you the facts, what we wanted to study is the bottom of the iceberg. And we were able to study all this, you know, what we call the herd, wolf, and protection, so wolf and herd protection system. And we were able to see all the encounters, but we were able to record the successfulness of dogs, because here you can see how dogs work. Here you just see when dogs failed or when the fence failed, but here you can see when the protection system is working, and this is great. And till now, when you make a study on the vulnerability factors, what you take into account in the pastoral system, the protection system, of course, the environment, the territory, if you are in a national park or not, and the multi-use, do you have a lot of tourism? And this is the propensity to be attacked, and this is a human perspective, typically. Okay, I imagine how the wolf behave, and I will put my herding protection But what we do is to have information from a wolf perspective. So we have to take into account the wolf factor to know who are there, alone, living in a group, subadult, and so on. And if you take this, the propensity to be attacked and the propensity to attack, you have the real with actual vulnerability. And this will give you, I think, more tools to be more accurate in your protection system. And we even give some information about variation in variability over 24 hours, because we were able to follow wolf during 45 hours. We were able to follow fox during 24 hours and dogs, of course. And we were able to show some period during the day could be very vulnerable and other part of the day are not. So when it's red, it's very vulnerable. And you have seen a figure just before that, the activity of the Woolstack at the beginning of the night. And at the beginning of the night, we arrive for the nighttime grouping with the sheep. We feed the dog, and for example, dog had a digestion, so they are not so very well active, sleeping a lot. And it is at this time they should be the more active dogs. This diagram just show you that we take into account also information during the day, and a lot of sheep owners or even or more shepherds do this. They don't know, they just do this by instinct. And now I will finish my talk with try to present you a new model of herd protection. So this will be a little complicated figure, so I hope you will be clear enough. But if I take dogs, we are now writing a publication to present a new LGD working model. Before we were, if you want to have a dog, and that was the historical model, it should be stay with the flock, it should be trustworthy, it shouldn't want any sheep, and it should be protective. And we have added in the Alps, it should be tolerant to human activities, and it should not hunt wildlife. But, you know, this does not explain how old is your dog or which sex. And I will give you just a very good example. When you see on the paper, a shepherd has owned 3 dogs. These 3 dogs could be pups, could be adult dogs, or be very old dogs, and their effectiveness are completely different. So you have to get this information. You need to have information on the versus older potential. Is the ability of a dog or a wolf to win a physical fight, for example. You have to take into account motivation, aggressiveness, so on. And this gives you the ability of the dog. But the ability of the dog, you should put it in an environmental factor, and you can have the best dog of the world. If you put it in forest with 2,000 sheep, it's not the same if you put it on the Alpine pasture with 10 sheep. You know, the effectiveness not will be the same. And then you take this effectiveness and you have to take into account the operating logic of the farms. That means the economic sensibility, because, and this point show you, for example, you can use dog in the south of France, back in the northern part of France, where we have very small flocks. One can have maybe 15 small flocks. You cannot use dogs because you need too much, it will be too costly to use this dog. You have to operate with fences. And if you see this wolf-dog relation, you can also say, and what we try to do is to have a chessboard, and you have players as dogs and with a wolf, and you have the player settings, and you have here a joker, and the role of the shepherd is very, very important, because he can put bonus to defend the flock against wolves who want to attack. And we can use, and it's too long to explain, but evolutionary game theory. So just to take hawk dove, you want your dog to be hawk. You want your dog to be the strongest, not the wolf. So if you want the dog to be strongest, you have to make selection, you have to feed them well, you have to take care of them, and so on. And what I've explained with dogs, you can exactly do the same for all the processes. So you need to know what do you have, the ability, your fence is good enough. If you put a fence in the forest or an alpine pasture, is not exactly the same. You see, you have to place this in the exploitation of the farmers to see if they afford to pay all this or not. So you can do exactly the same. When you make this analysis, you better understand how protection is working or not working. And when you have all this together, you have to consider predation should be considered now as a natural hazard, and the wolf is a risk. And like humans, we know how to manage risk. So now we have to manage the wolf risk. And we created tools with a decision-making tool. This is very adaptable, and you need only 3 indicators. So you have a territory, wolf, you have your herd protection strategy, you have your vulnerability, and you have 6 indicators. And each morning when you are shepherd, you have to ask, is my herding protection strategy okay? So how is my pastoral practice today? My protective tool, maybe I have today a female in heat, so she's not working very well, so I have to be careful. What is a wolf threat? Do I have now a pack? Do I have only a few wolves? Did I have some predation a few days ago? And what are the worsening factors? For example, 5 years ago, I have a big storm, or today I have the foggy day. Then you can have 4 modes of alertness, like in avalanches, and we did from avalanches. Someday you can be relaxed, depending on this. You could be suspicious, alert, or hazardous, and you have to adapt your practice each day, and you make this each day, and you see what's going on. And then to finish, we arrive to our special iceberg, what we call the Iceberg Model. And of course, you have to take into account the wolf factor, which gives you the actual vulnerability, the real vulnerability. You have to protect your sheep. You have to extend your security zone, so have dog working far away from the flock. You have to test the ability to protect. This gives you the effectiveness of protection, and you have to have adaptive management of wolf risk. And then you have also protection, and the pressure gradient go from bottom to up, of course. More the wolf go to the sheep, more the damages could occur. And this is what we worked on, what is invisible or hard to see, and this what we were doing until now. And my conclusion is to say, I think we were able to measure the effectiveness of protecting measured by direct observation. And this is the first time we were able to have videos, and you can see these videos. We think that we can improve maybe the protective measures, but I think they are working. And but now, if you want to prove them, we need really to take into account the wolf factor. This is the next step, into account the wolf factor. And if you want to take the wolf factor, you need to invest in knowledge. You cannot. That is something new. We are in the complexity, so you have to get more knowledge on what is a wolf, because you want to protect your flock against the wolf. It could be the lynx, which there's a bear. And if you want to have more information, we have a YouTube site. You can find those major videos I've seen. You can find many videos. You can go on our website. You have many things. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much to you, Monsieur Landry. This was really, really interesting. I must say, also analyzing the different factors and the very detailed approach you made of the behavior and on the individualities of the dogs, but also of the wolves. Yes, and I see a lot of hands raised, so I start like they are coming, like I saw them also being raised, and the very, very first one was Caroline Rose. So I give the floor first to Caroline. Please, you have the floor.
Merci Tilly et merci à toutes et à tous. Tout d'abord, je voulais remercier donc Monsieur Delgado pour sa présentation et Monsieur Landry pour cette étude. Le fait que vous ayez travaillé en collaboration avec les bergers, alors cette étude, elle a été faite dans ma région, je suis assez contente de ça, puisque il n'y a pas très longtemps, j'ai été avec des bergers de ma région sur le plateau de Cossol qui ont subi justement des attaques de loups. Donc, je vois que dans cette étude, on retrouve certains critères qui pourront justement aider ces bergers à protéger leur troupeau. J'ai deux questions à Monsieur Delgado. Donc, tout d'abord, je voudrais savoir si les efforts de conservation, y compris tous les financements fournis par l'Union européenne pour la protection des loups, ont-ils été couronnés de succès? Est-ce que vous avez identifié des lacunes dans la gestion des financements par les États membres? Et puis tout à l'heure, quand vous avez fait votre exposé, vous avez parlé de soutien aux bergers et de compensation. On voit que les fonds pour la biodiversité sont des fonds qui sont pas de gros fonds, hein, puisqu'on a des rares fonds qui sont disponibles pour la biodiversité. Ne serait-il pas mieux pour soutenir ces bergers et leur offrir des compensations, d'utiliser en priorité les fonds de la PAC justement pour ces bergers? Merci à vous pour vos réponses.
Merci beaucoup à toi, Caroline. I think we will do ping pong. So because there were already a lot of questions there, so I give the floor to the experts to answer this question, and then we come to the next question because Caroline had already some there.
So I'm not sure if you gave me the floor.
Yes. Yes. Go ahead, please.
First, if there are success stories, yes, sure. There are several success stories in terms of protection measures to the different extents, but some of the examples we know, including from some live projects that they have targeted. For instance, I have inside the Live Wolf Alps project, which had prevention measures that has reduced wolf attacks by some 96%. And there's another project, the Life Extra. This one was on Romania, Spain, Italy, Greece, where the reduction was 98 to 100%. But this is not the same everywhere. For instance, the guardian dogs, it depends a lot of the situation of the specific dog, how it is managed, but Jean-Marc on dogs will know better. Now, the issue of compensation, first I would say, well, all in all, the EU funds are taxpayers' money to begin with. And so we cannot say, for instance, that the CAP money is not also biodiversity money, because biodiversity is one of the objectives of the CAP. So I say, indeed, yes, we do think the CAP is actually well tuned to support livestock farmers, to deal including with compensation and with protection measures. But there are other funds that are applicable. I've just mentioned the Life Fund also.
There were also questions to you, Monsieur Landry, if you want to act, please.
Should I reply in English or in French? What is the best?
We have translation, interpretation.
Ok, alors je vais vous répondre en français. Donc, je pense sur le plateau de Cossol, vous êtes allé voir Bernard Bruno, j'imagine, parce que je sais qu'il a quelques soucis. Moi, je pense que sur Cossol, par exemple, on est capable de donner un coup de main. Mais nous, ce qui nous manque, c'est les financements, pour être clair. On a travaillé avec Bernard pendant les étés. C'est un gars qui est fantastique, c'est un très bon éleveur. Puis quand on a un gars comme ça qui est des fois bordé larmes ou qui peut plus, c'est vraiment prenant. Et c'est aussi pour ces gens-là qu'on fait tout ce travail-là. Mais je dois quand même vous avouer que nous, on a eu beaucoup de bâtons dans les roues parce qu'il y a des gens qui ne veulent pas qu'on fasse notre recherche, des gens qui ne veulent pas que ça fonctionne aussi. Et je trouve que tous ces éleveurs sont perdants. Et quand j'ai vu Bernard la dernière fois, lui, il nous a dit, c'est des gens comme toi qui vont nous aider, mais c'est pas le milieu agricole, parce qu'il y a d'autres, c'est un niveau politique, quoi. Donc nous, on a vraiment maintenant besoin de soutien sur le terrain. Et puis, je pense que les solutions ne viennent que si on travaille main dans la main avec la profession, avec les éleveurs et les bergers, parce qu'eux, ils ont leur connaissance que nous n'avons pas. Et c'est que dans cet échange-là qu'on peut y arriver.
Merci beaucoup. And to be gender balanced in both directions, I now take a man. Thomas Weiss is not there anymore because I had him on my list. But then I take Pascal Durand and then afterwards Sarah Wiener.
Merci beaucoup, Thierry, de me donner la parole. C'est la première fois qu'on donne la parole à un homme pour respecter la parité. En tout cas, je suis très, très heureux de voir que finalement les femmes prennent la main sur cette question. Non, moi j'ai une question, évidemment c'était passionnant les présentations et moi aussi je viens de la même région que Caroline, donc pour me balader souvent dans le Mercantour, d'ailleurs j'en suis à un stade où j'ai un peu plus peur des patous que des loups quand je me promène, mais ça c'est un autre sujet, c'est les chiens aussi en liberté dans la région notamment du Mercantour. Moi, j'ai une question pratico-pratique, c'est-à-dire que la réponse française, pas que française, mais la réponse française la plus directe et la plus facile maintenant, c'est celle d'un mot que je déteste, que j'ai en horreur, on parle de prélèvement. En réalité, quand on prélève, on tue. Donc j'aimerais qu'on utilise des mots beaucoup plus directs et beaucoup plus clairs, c'est-à-dire on tue les loups. Et c'est une politique qui est extrêmement répandue maintenant en France, puisqu'on arrive quasiment à 20% de la population. Donc, je voudrais que vous me disiez d'un point de vue scientifique, pratique, est-ce que l'abattage des loups est une solution? Est-ce que c'est la bonne solution? Ou est-ce qu'au contraire, ça n'est pas la bonne solution? Parce que vous avez parlé évidemment d'autres solutions, mais on n'a pas du tout évoqué cette question de l'abattage.
Merci, Pascal. Who wants to react first? Maybe Monsieur Landry, you can react, and then if Mr. Delgado wants to add.
Ouais. Alors, je vais répondre en français. I will reply in French. C'est une question qui est fondamentale parce que l'idée de la France, c'est d'avoir la réciprocité. C'est-à-dire que moi, je suis sur mon terrain et toi, tu viens sur mon terrain et je te tue. C'est un peu ça l'idée. La majorité des études n'arrivent pas à démontrer l'efficacité en fait des tirs. Vous savez qu'il y a une étudiante qui a fait une thèse de doctorat, puis elle, ce qu'elle dit, la conclusion de sa thèse sur l'efficacité des tirs en France, c'est de dire c'est quand même quelque chose qui est très complexe, très très complexe, que dans certains endroits, on a vu une diminution, dans d'autres endroits, on a vu une augmentation des dommages, puis dans d'autres endroits, on n'a pas vu de différence, puis que ça demanderait plus d'études. Moi, personnellement, moi, je pense qu'il faut utiliser le tir comme un outil de protection et le mettre dans un schéma global de stratégie de protection des troupeaux. Mais on n'est pas là pour tirer du loup par vengeance ou parce qu'il faut tirer du loup. Et puis, je pense que le message n'est pas très bon maintenant parce que moi, je le vis personnellement sur des études que nous faisons. Dès qu'il y a un loup, on demande un tir et puis le tir est tellement facile à obtenir. C'est pas facile de tirer des loups, mais maintenant les Français deviennent bons. Et le problème qui est en France, et ça j'aimerais quand même le soulever parce que personne ne le soulève, c'est que le loup est une espèce protégée, bon très bien, mais vous pouvez en France tirer un loup n'importe quel jour de l'année. Vous pourrez tirer une femelle pleine, vous pourrez tirer une femelle allaitante, vous pouvez tirer des louveteaux, vous pouvez tirer le mâle reproducteur, vous pouvez tirer des jeunes, vous pouvez tirer n'importe quoi. À ma connaissance, il n'y a pas beaucoup d'espèces en Europe qui ont ce statut-là. Donc c'est quelque chose qui est assez incroyable pour moi que voir que la directive Habitat protège une espèce comme le loup, et puis finalement sur le terrain, c'est pas ce qu'on voit. Donc je comprends bien qu'il faut qu'on puisse se garder les tirs. Je pense que c'est une chose, voilà, on est là pour aider les éleveurs, mais il faut que le tir, il faut que quand on tue un loup, ça soit utile à l'éleveur et au berger. Et nous, ce qu'on a montré dans notre étude, c'est que c'est très complexe parce que parfois, quand vous tirez un loup à proximité du troupeau, il faisait juste de passer et vous n'avez pas tiré le bon loup. Alors, c'est clair que les louvetiers et la brigade loup nous rétorquent comment on fait pour reconnaître les loups. Et c'est là toute la difficulté. Donc, pour l'instant, on va vers la solution de facilité. Donc, juste pour terminer ma réponse, c'est de dire de tirer un loup, c'est pas le problème, mais il faut que ça rentre dans une stratégie de protection. Il faut que ça soit considéré comme un outil de protection, pas comme des prélèvements, pas comme de la régulation. Et puis, je pense qu'on doit quand on fait un tir, on doit mettre derrière de la protection et il faut surtout travailler sur la protection et il faut surtout investir dans la connaissance. C'est plus facile de tuer que d'apprendre à connaître.
C'est très bien dit. Mr. Delgado, do you want to add something on this? Please feel free.
Yes, I would indeed add two messages. One is culling the solution? No, it may be needed in certain cases, case by case for individual wolves, but actually just culling wolves can in some cases, and Jean-Marc said it, make things worse. If you kill the male alpha, for instance, you can have the pack doing even more damage. So it's a last resort under due conditions. Now, on the issue of wolf culling in member states, one thing, or the habitats are active application. First, it's for the national authorities and judicial authorities. They are the main responsible for the implementation and enforcement of legislation. That's where things start. And the first resource should be to address national authorities and national judicial authorities. Now, with a commission, we are very much aware of that, the guardian of the treaties. So we do act when we find general practice or systemic failures where we identify the risk of a systemic failure on application of directive. But we do start by the dialogue, by questioning the member state, and then if need be, we don't shy away from going into infringements. We have had several on wolf-related issues also.
Thank you very much for this addition. I give the floor. We have a lot of questions, also interesting questions in the chat that we will not neglect as possible or give written answers afterwards. But now the floor to Sarah Wiener. Please, hello, Sarah.
Hi, thank you for this very interesting presentation. I will just cut my spot very short with two questions. One at the Commission. To what extent is the Commission trying to standardize monitoring on wolf population in the EU, and both to have a common database and to better record illegal killing of wolves? And the second question is to Mr. Landry. When does the use of guard dogs reach its limits? For example, in the case of larger wolf packs or because of different regions? That's all. Thank you.
Vielen Dank, Sarah. The floor first to Mr. Delgado now.
On the monitoring, we do get many questions and concerns on monitoring all wolf numbers. Now, of course, we cannot expect the Commission itself to do the monitoring. That's something, again, that should be done at member state level. What we do encourage, though, is for member states to collaborate at the level of the biogeographic regions they share with other member states. And that's where it's useful to see what is a shared population and to compare the figures. But we consider that the monitoring as ongoing does give us reliable data enough to know what's happening on wolves at the biogeographical level.
Thank you, Mr. Landry.
Yeah, you know, predators are not a limiting factors to use dogs. The limiting factor is our society, so how we accept these dogs, you know. Because when you are going on a walk on the Alpine pasture, some dogs will come and check you, or visit you, or sometimes you have biting incidents. And I think the limitation is more that, and it's also the agriculture practices, you know, the breeding practices. You have in some places where you have small, like I told you before, very small flocks, and you cannot use dogs everywhere. You know, in some places it's very difficult because you need to feed them. You have to have many dogs. So if you have a big flock and you split it in 15 small flocks, that means you need at least 30 or 45 dogs. So this is not possible. I think this is the limitation now. And one other limitation is maybe selection. We need to have very good dogs who are able to fight and able to live nearby human activities. And this is the most difficult things to do. If you come in the Alps, is I think one place in the world where you have the most tourism people. And so the dog, for the first time of their history, have to live in such a landscape. So we need a little time to find the good dog for the Alps or the good dog for Germany, you know, just can live in this kind of landscape. But I'm not sure that predator have a limiting effect on the dogs. Did I reply clearly to your question? I'm not so sure.
Yes, Sarah shows a thumb, so I think it's perfect. Thank you very much. And yeah, Misha disappeared also. I give the floor to Anja Hazekamp, please.
Yes, thank you, Tilly. And thanks to our guests. As mentioned by the European Commission, it is important that wolves remain strictly protected in Europe. And in June 2021, the European Parliament has reconfirmed its support for this. However, the hunting lobby and the agro-industry lobby have been preparing a well-organized and emotional campaign to attacked the European nature conservation laws, in particular against the protection of wolves and large carnivores, but also on herons and cormorants. So at this very moment, the Agri Committee is preparing a resolution aiming to weaken the EU Habitats and Birds Directive and aiming to rob the wolf of its protected status. And the Agri attack on wolves is contrary to how the competences are divided within the European Parliament. Nature and biodiversity are an exclusive competence of the ENV Committee. And I call on all members of the Animal Welfare Intergroup to closely monitor the process and the progress of this Agri resolution and to stand up for nature and biodiversity and the protection of wolves in the EU. Stand up within your groups and within the European Parliament, because so far in the Agri Committee, Maria Neuchel and myself were the only ones to fight against this, but we failed in our attempts. So stand up within your groups and defend the existing position of the that the European Parliament already has taken in its resolution on the biodiversity strategy. And I hope that the Commission will do the same. If you allow me, I have one question for Mr. Delgado Rosa. Humberto, scientific studies show that conflicts with wolves originate from their what they have learned in their parent packs. So it is very important to find ways to develop new methods that focus on generating negative experiences of killing farm animals while the animals are still in this parent pack. Can you give us some ideas on how we can stimulate the development of innovative solutions that don't lead at the same time to increase of wolf predation on farm animals, as some existing solutions do, and where in areas also applicable where guard dogs are not feasible, such as, for instance, the Netherlands. And I ask this question because we see that often these out-of-the-box solutions have so far encountered problems getting support from life. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Delgado, you have the floor.
Yes. First, I want just to refer, as I said in my first intervention, we do consider the nature directives fit for purpose. We actually have done the fitness check, so we have no intention to reopen them, and we think they do provide all the flexibility. On the issue of alternatives or innovation, certainly we should not aim at getting to protection through getting back to the Middle Ages. And there's today a wealth of technological innovations, some already available, electric fences. It's one of those cases, and other kinds of deterrents. And I would very much favor for the research towards what can help technologically to protect. I'm no expert on protection measures though, so not sure if Jean-Marc would know better than I what innovations can kick in, but a mix of innovative approaches, also with old style approaches like putting cattle back into shelter at night where that is possible, including guard dogs. They are very effective in some areas, and this through a mix and an adaptation to local circumstances that we can get where we want. In some cases, we do need dog presence and human presence, which is work that can be paid and compensated. In other cases, the technology as such should be enough. But don't count on me to come with a list of technological innovations. I'm not acquainted enough with them.
Thank you very much. Marguerite, you have the floor, please.
Okay, thank you. I just have a little comment. You know, fighting for wolves is really, even in Denmark, where we have so few, it's a full war. And I could just add a little thing. I think apart from snakes, no animal has such a bad reputation as wolves have, and that's we're really up against. And sometimes I say, yes, we all know that they eat grandmothers. So we, of course, have to get rid of these terrible animals. But just to remind you, there's one place they have a very good reputation, and many, many children and adult enlistments within the Boy Scouts. In the Jungle Book, you know, there the wolves are. Raksa is a clever, caring mother wolf. And we have a totally different and probably much closer to reality narrative on wolves. And I just tell you, it's quite efficient. I've used it many times, and you know something else about wolves, many of you, because from when you were a child and you heard all these stories. In at least the Scout movement has been and still is quite strong in Denmark. So just little. It wasn't a joke. It's a little recommendation, because these campaigns are really difficult, even if we have all the evidence on our side, and we can prove that no humans are in danger, that and so on and so forth. And if you use dogs and shepherds, which they never do in Denmark, they just shoot them, and it's very forbidden. But then they get rid of him somewhere, I don't know. And but in this campaign, this little story is quite helpful. That was just my little remark before I'm running to the airport. Thank you very much, and thank you for this very, very enlightening session here. I was very happy to get all these facts. Thank you.
Thank you to you, Margrethe. Yeah, vive Mowgli, and have a good trip back. I give immediately then the floor to Anna Dupernay-Grunberg, please.
Yeah, hello everybody. Thank you, Mr. Delgado and Jean-Marc Landry, for this really interesting studies and also the conclusion. First remark, yeah, we are shifting a paradigm. We have to be aware. For hundreds of years as humans, we just put our brain in producing some weapons, and the only way we had to protect our livestock was to kill the wolves. And now at least we are putting a lot of energy, science, comprehension on organizing together the cohabitation. So I think we are on the right track altogether. But it's really important to see that each ecosystem and type of landscape, traditional pasturage, are really different. So we need more such science and more such studies in each corner of Europe, of course. And I thought really interesting what you said, Mr. Delgado. We need this inclusive protection. Participation is really important with the peasants, with the NGOs, with the biologists, and also with the administration. I am really surprised to hear that the Habitat Directive seems really different applied in Germany as in France. In Germany, we had a really, really free single killing of wolves, and it made a bit scandal. And in France, I heard it's quite more popular, les prélèvements. And I think this different practices are really difficult for the EU at whole, because we have, and we see it in agri now, a kind of new wave to see we have to lower down the Habitat Directive. So maybe you can give us a little bit more food on that, how to apply the Habitat Directive properly, and to search for other solution everywhere. And yeah, as a shadow in agri for this file, I will of course support Anja and Maria that the Habitat Directive will not be diluted, and there will be no lex carnivore coming from this sense, I hope, for all our protection. And thank you for the great data and just the openness that we can really work on the ground with the peasants and find some solution really adapted to everywhere.
Thank you very much, Anna. Indeed, harmonization of the implementation of the existing directive and communication is key. But I let Mr. Delgado react. And of course, if Mr. Landry wants to add something, then afterwards, feel free to do so. Mr. Delgado, you have the floor.
Yes, we do have the concern on if the Habitat Directive is being adequately applied everywhere. Again, the first resource should be the national authorities and the national judicial systems, which often work. Recently in Finland, the National Court took a decision to suspend the license to shoot animals, for instance. And when we as Commission identify what may be a systemic wrong approach, we first dialogue with member state. We do have our nature dialogues for that. And in case we remain unconvinced, we can move into further investigation and infringement enforcement. But let me add my perception on, let's say, the state of play of the debate. There are those to look to the return of the wolf as a problem that requires a shoot-to-kill approach. So ideally, we wipe out the wolf whenever it comes and the problem is solved. I don't think this approach will ever work because European society doesn't want it. Many people do fear the wolf. They do have a bad reputation, but there are many Europeans that like the idea of wolves existing in nature. Not all of them suffer the consequences, that's sure, but that's why the only alternative is coexistence. Now, why is this often the problem more visible in countries where small populations of wolves are coming back instead of countries that have large populations for long? I would say because in those countries where the wolf was never wiped out, the coexistence remained, the protection remained, the extra work to deal with the predator remained. That's where the predator comes back, that's where we have the conflict, and it does require some years until settling enough. There's always some damage that can still occur, but that's where compensation should kick in. And we can find with time a due balance for coexistence. There's no alternative to coexistence in my view.
Yeah, if I can add something, you know, to be frank, I think that one of the problems is that for many sheep owners or farmers, life is quite difficult right now. And of course, when the wolf is arriving, it's some more difficulties, you know, and I think they are alone to face this. If you help them, you give money, okay, but it's not enough, because when you have livestock and dogs and there is a problem, they will be responsible. They have the responsibilities. They have their responsibilities to put the fence, even they don't have time, you know. So our society would like to have wolves. This is a good thing, and I am in favor of this. But the only person who have all the problems are farmers, you know, and I think we should also find another way to see that the European society are also in favor of these sheep farmers, and society can help them, you know, to implement all the protective measures, because it's a lot of work for some of them, you know. In summertime, some of them are working 17 hours per day. And if the wolves come there and you say, okay, I will pay you a dog, I will pay you a fence, you say, okay, that's very nice, but I cannot implement all this, you know. And when he has the dogs, the neighbors will say, I don't want your dog to bark. So this farmer face many problems, and it's not the fault of the wolf, it's the fault of our society, because we do not accept, and sometimes we just give the money and say, okay, you have to do it by yourself. And in Switzerland, for example, we try now to have a project where we have some NGOs, and we will help directly the shepherds and sheep owners by acting as we want wolf in Switzerland. We will invest money and we will invest our time to help you, and we will not let you alone in these wolf problems, you know. And I think this is a message very important, and that is the reason why in France they are against, because they say, okay, we protect wolf and we have all the problems, you know.
Thank you very much. The last question from the MEP is coming from Maria Neuschel. Bitte, Maria, du hast das Wort.
My question is very easy, and I wrote it in the chat. The question is, how is the situation for attacks on the one side from the wolves and attacks from the dogs against people, for example, tourists or so on. I think this is. I live in the Alps, and I heard in Germany there was 100 years no attacks against a person, against a human. But the question is, and I think we have specialists with us, the question is this really clear that there is no problem for tourists and so on? And I heard sometimes the dogs more problem for tourists than the wolves. This is a question from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria. I give the floor to Mr. Delgado, please.
On the dogs being a threat, maybe Jean-Marc can say more than I, but let me put things this way. Indeed, wolf attacks on humans, we have no records of that for 100 years in Europe. We cannot say the likelihood is zero. It's never zero. Of course, that can happen. It has probably happened in the past, as we know. But let me do a parallel. Do we like to have a world with tigers? or with lions, because tigers do kill Indians every year. But we don't claim then tigers should be shot everywhere. So even with that risk, we should maintain the coexistence. The risk is very slim. And now the real problem is actually livestock. And for that, it requires work, effort. It doesn't work well at first sight, everywhere at first essay, but we know it can work. That's where we should invest. I don't think it's much of a concern, the threat for humans, apart from the fear that does exist among several people.
Yes, the floor to Monsieur Landry, please.
Yeah, concerning livestock guarding dogs, of course, there are some problems because people, I think they lost the manner of behave in front of this kind of dogs. And some of them are just afraid because dogs are barking. Some don't know how to behave as they could be bitten. But this is a risk, and we can deal with this because we can make a better selection, better education. And I think to be frank, because I'm working also on this topic, I think in the next 10 years, we will decrease the biting incidents because we're able to give more education and select dogs. We cannot in tourist areas like in Germany or in the Alps have aggressive dogs towards humans. Dogs can be very, very effective against wolves and very nice with people. Now, we need such dogs. So we need to take into account that people could be frightened by these dogs. So we need education, and in the same way, we need also to make good selection education of these dogs.
Thank you very much. I have a very last question from Annika Bruna, and then I'm very sorry. I wanted to take some questions from the Q&A, but we're going to reply them in a written way. And I saw also, and I welcome also Nicola Clark. He's the specialist for wildlife from the Eurogroup. He's there since 2 months. I saw he answered some question in the chat, but we're going to take also the answers in the Q&A and give their written questions. Sorry for that I couldn't take you, and thank you for being so active. Annika, you have the last question.
Oui, merci Tilly. Vous m'entendez? Très bien, merci Tilly et merci aux intervenants. Alors moi, je voulais partager avec vous des éléments sur le loup, notamment pour dire que la France était effectivement dans une situation singulière puisque les autorités abattent entre 19 et 21% de la population chaque année. C'est la raison pour laquelle la Commission européenne a demandé en 2021 des comptes au gouvernement français. La Commission demande notamment que la France justifie ses abattages et qu'elle ne nuise pas à la conservation de l'espèce. Plus important, la Commission européenne demande au gouvernement français d'assurer la mise en œuvre généralisée de mesures de prévention des dommages. Alors, comme l'a parfaitement exposé M. Landry, on peut penser notamment aux pratiques pastorales qui permettent d'éviter les attaques des loups sur les ovins en recourant à des chiens de berger et qui surveillent les troupeaux et en les protégeant mieux la nuit. Alors, ces demandes sont parfaitement justifiées sur le plan technique afin de respecter la protection des loups par la directive Habitat. Mais il faut, je pense, aller plus loin en termes d'information du public et notamment du monde rural. En effet, ce que l'on observe aussi en France, c'est une augmentation de la population des cervidés et des sangliers. Or, ces populations de grands gibiers ont un impact de plus en plus important sur les cultures. Trop nombreux, les cervidés et les sangliers finissent par causer d'importantes pertes aux agriculteurs. Il faut donc convaincre les agriculteurs de considérer les agriculteurs de considérer les loups comme de véritables auxiliaires pour protéger leur culture. Bien sûr, cela nécessitera de mieux protéger les troupeaux, mais cela n'est pas impossible. L'Italie, d'ailleurs, le fait très bien et sans que cela pose de problème. Enfin, il faut aussi informer le public sur l'importance des loups pour régénérer les forêts. Les cervidés ont tendance à manger toutes les jeunes pousses des arbres. Le loup permet à la forêt de se régénérer naturellement en réduisant la pression des cervidés sur le sous-bois. C'est également un argument non négligeable qui peut être entendu par le monde rural. J'aimerais avoir vos observations sur ces propositions. Merci.
Very last reaction. Maybe I give first the floor to Mr. Landry very shortly because we really have to finish. We are already minutes over time. And also to Mr. Delgado, I give the floor for the last conclusion words.
Je réponds en français. Ce qui est intéressant dans votre intervention, c'est qu'on essaie de démontrer l'utilité du loup pour préserver une espèce. Puis moi, je pense d'un point de vue philosophique, puis d'un point de vue humain, toute espèce a le droit de vivre. Maintenant, je pense que si on veut améliorer la protection des troupeaux, il faut inclure les éleveurs et les bergers dans ce brainstorming. Pour moi, c'est fondamental. Est-ce que le loup, on nous demande souvent quel est le rôle du loup. Quelque chose qu'on n'a pas parlé, c'est la borréliose, hein, les tiques. C'est clair que les ongulés sauvages sont des réservoirs à tiques. Et puis là, le loup pourrait jouer un rôle important. Puis c'est vrai que sur la régénération des forêts, les Polonais ont montré que les loups peuvent avoir une très bonne action. Et c'est vrai que le loup a un rôle à jouer dans la préservation de notre environnement. Ça me paraît très clair. Et puis il a aussi un rôle à jouer au niveau culturel. Donc voilà ce que je voulais dire. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Mr. Delgado, the last conclusive words, please.
Yes, indeed. The large predators, of course, have an ecological role to play. What we don't want that role to be played is upon domestic animals, pets, or livestock. But indeed, we in a world as ours, where we do have humans, we do have livestock, we also have wild ungulates, and we have predators, we can very well move towards protecting the animals we need to protect for our livelihoods, and then the wolf can indeed prey on deer, on wild boar, and so forth, bringing in a positive role. I was actually surprised in a meeting in Romania. There was an evaluation of the diet of the wolf, which was some 70% wild boar. It's of course much easier to kill a sheep, an unprotected sheep, than a wild boar. But if the sheep are protected, then the wolf fulfills its role. That's what we aim at. That's what we should get from coexistence.
Thank you very much to all of you, and especially to our two experts, Mr. Delgado and Mr. Landry. This was really passionate presentation, so thank you very much. And I think we need further research, also spread more information, and also boosting more or fostering the communication between the different stakeholders. And I think there's still a lot to do, because there is, as Margarete said, this famous narrative around the wolf that we have to change indeed. So thank you very much also for the very active participation of all the members of the European Parliament, but also we were today not far from 130 persons following. So thank you very much for that, for your attention, for listening to us. And just some information on the 1st March from 10 to 11:30, there's a webinar hosted by Saskia Brickman, a member of the European Parliament from Belgium. And she has their webinar organized around to explore Vietnam's footprint in Africa with regard to the trafficking in wildlife. So I think that can be very interesting. So please follow that on the 1st of March if you have the time. And then the next monthly session of the Animal Welfare Intergroup will be held on the 10th of March, so please put it already in your agenda. The likely item of debate will be on control measures of zoonotic diseases and the concerns for animal welfare. Well, further information will come. So right now, I wish you all bon appétit. Have a nice day, and see you soon. And thank you again for your very active participation. It was great. Bye-bye.
Merci beaucoup à tous.
Au revoir à tous. Merci.
Thank you very much, everyone.